I want to continue something I started on the inspirational moment the last time I spoke, and that was actually part one of this. This is part two. So I'm going to repeat part one for you quickly. Part one comes from a poem written by Claudia Minden Wise. And from what I could gather from the little history I found, she had a daughter who had a progressive, debilitating physical condition. Her mother had a progressive mental condition, and her husband left. So she wrote this poem, I guess, assuming the only person who would listen to it was God himself. And this is the way it goes. And the name of the poem is I Asked God, and God said no. I asked God to take away my pride, and God said no. He said it was not for him to take away, but for me to give up. I asked God to make my handicapped child whole, and God said no. He said her spirit is whole. Her body was only temporary. I asked God to grant me patience, and God said no. He said patience is a byproduct of tribulation. It isn't granted, it is earned. I asked God to give me happiness, and God said no. He said he gives me blessings. Happiness is up to me. I asked God to spare me pain, and God said no. He said suffering draws me apart from worldly cares and brings me closer to him. I asked God to make my spirit grow, and God said no. He said I must grow on my own, but he will prune me to make me fruitful. I asked for all things that I might enjoy life, and God said no. He said he will give me life that I may enjoy all things. I asked God to help me love others as much as he loves me, and God said, you finally have the idea.
Wow.
All of these things, she seemed to be a woman of incredible faith. And at that time, and I was a woman of no faith. Absolutely, well, I won't say absolutely none, because I asked God for all of these things at one time or the other, and God said no. I did not get an explanation of what the no was about. And so I figured, okay, God's not going to help me with this. I don't have an answer. And so I'm going to have to find a way to get an answer, to understand what was going on in my own life. And so asking for all of these things and brought up in the faith that I was brought up in, you didn't question. You just accepted life as it was. But I did question. I had a lot of questions. And with God telling me no, then that meant I had to find a way, because otherwise I wasn't getting into the pearly gates. So anyway, I started asking in different ways what I could do to get the faith. And since my answer was always no, I felt going against anything was reaching for forbidden fruit. And I wasn't about to challenge God, except things kept developing in my life. People, places, things, books. Someone would just say something on television and it would make me want to seek that out. But if I sought it out, I was going against what I believed was the Word of God. So for a long time, I was very bitter, very pessimistic. And I know I'm going to try not to use that word again around you light bearers. But angry. You know, all of these things and all of these people were available out there, but I could not consult them. I couldn't read anything. I couldn't go against what I had been taught. So eventually, The things kept cropping up, and I felt as if I were being led into temptation. And that I was fighting against God. But then I asked myself, why would God allow all of this to come in front of me if I cannot have it? And so a part of me, maybe on a subconscious level, said, maybe it's here for me to look at. And so I began to go out and seek and search, and anywhere anyone said they had something they could tell me, I was sitting there. Sometimes it was a place I didn't want to go in the front door. But sometimes it was never a place I went to where I did not learn something, even if that something was not to be there. So over the years, I became a member of a goddess circle. I took a correspondence course in Builders of the Adytum. And I studied with them all told, because I regrouped with them, about 10 years. I was a member of the goddess circle. I can't keep straight that part. But I would read anything that even hinted at telling me something that would help build my faith. And like I said, I also surrounded myself with light bearers. So here I am. Okay, the thing was, I was studying not to be a teacher, a preacher, a spiritual leader, a historian, a theologian. I just wanted to know. And I never thought I'd be standing in front of anyone telling me about this, but I know I've told you my story many times, so here's a repeat of it. But what I thought would help me to get to that point was like the three wise men. Why were they out there wandering, following the star? Were they astronomers? Were they astrologers? Well, whatever they were, I wanted to know what they were. And I assumed they were astrologers, probably both. I wanted to know Moses. When Moses was taught all things by the Egyptians, what did they teach him? I mean, if it was in there, why not tell me what they taught him? Because I turned from page to page trying to find out what exactly he knew. I wanted to know what Solomon taught the Queen of Sheba. Why didn't they put it in there? You know, I spent a lot of time trying to figure out what exactly that entourage was about. And what did she find out that made her travel that far and go back and become another part of what Solomon was? And then, to be honest with you, I really did kind of question the wisdom of Solomon when he made the judgment over the two mothers and the baby. That kind of threw me. So I'm not really always sure. I want to know what his wisdom was. And then, finally, the good book. Why was a king authorizing a version of a book that was already written, and one would assume the original was written by God himself? Why would you change it? Why would you take away from it? Why would you add to it? What can you say that's more important than God himself? So these were the questions I had, and let me tell you, I was nervous about asking any of them because God said no. And so as time went on, I became more comfortable asking because I was starting to get some of the answers I wanted, or at least partial answers. As far as I could tell, they were at least satisfactory to me. I could rest. And so my faith has grown considerably. I'm not quite as afraid, but I still have some moments of trepidation. You know, am I supposed to be doing this? And yet I continue to do it. So over the years I peaked, and I've always asked forgiveness for my trespasses. And I guess God understood me because I guess I feel forgiven. But this is the thing. Before I got ready to do my initial inspirational moment, I had printed out a copy of this form, of the poem. And it wasn't large enough. The print was not large enough. I could not see it truly. And so I decided, I kept trying to get it to enlarge and I couldn't do it. And so I finally decided I needed to write it out. And so as I was writing, I asked God, and God said no. Said no, you know? When I wrote it, God said no. All the time I had been given permission, but my mindset was pessimistic, and so it would not accept the no. All the things that were placed in front of me were signs and agreement that this was what I needed to be doing. And all the people, places, everything over the years has encouraged me to know. So, I do feel forgiven. I do feel some enlightenment. I do feel encouraged and surrounded by love and people who understand. And I still am in progress. Like I think I had at one time felt I told you all there was to tell you about me and my journey. But it is an ongoing journey. It will never end. And those 2 months I took in seclusion were pretty much those months that said, you've said enough. But God will let me know, when I've said enough. And so I thank you.